per person. That's for not getting anything back in return. Wandsworth are getting subsidised by over £100 per person to keep their poll tax figure low. So you could say that Liverpool people are paying £30 to keep better off people in Wandsworth on a low poll tax.
So would you say that was a fix then taking place at Wandsworth?
It's definitely a fix. The hope that any concessions and safety nets and so on that the Tories have made have all been to try and hold up support in their areas and to try and put the blame on Labour councils. But even the Tory party, rank and file now, are blaming Maggie Thatcher and her cohorts for introducing the poll tax. And I believe that they will lose the next general election on this one.
But how do you feel the Labour leadership is handling this issue of the poll tax?
Well, unfortunately, they could do better, as they say. I think what the Labour leaders ought to argue is for return of the money that's been stolen from local government. As I say, that 28 billion, at least 500 million that's been stolen from Liverpool City alone. If that was brought back in and cuts in public spending, a local government could be reversed and we could have a sensible rating system.
Okay, and do you feel this is potentially very damaging for the government?
Oh yeah, I think it could be the downfall of the Tory government, and personally I can't wait for that day.
Thank you very much.
Student delegation, out.
People there.
We're not paying a poll tax. We're not paying a poll tax. We're not paying a poll tax. We're not paying a poll tax.
Hello with the megaphone.
Right, hold on, we've got Mike Morris here from the Merseyside Federation.
Just all I want to say is, at the lobby today, I've just been round the side of the council building. There are 5 riot vans packed full of police. There's mounted policemen on top of the police who are already there. Now, they've already been very, very edgy with us because they were looking at what took place in Bristol and other places last night. They are expecting a full-scale riot because Liverpool is seen as the hub of the militant tendency, and they equate that with violence. Now, we know that's not the case. We're very, very placid people, mild in manner. Our attitude is always mild in manner, but bold in content. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to be noisy at this demonstration, that we're not going to try and go into the chamber to make it clear to the councillors. But one thing that I'm asking you on behalf of the Federation, we are not going to have violence in the middle of the council chamber. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. I've been in the middle of meetings with the left-wing councillors in Liverpool, where we've been discussing what the tactics are going to be in terms of the poll tax in Liverpool. The meeting today is going to set a budget expenditure, as far as we know, that will mean there will not be cuts in jobs and services in the city. Now, that's one thing that we put forward as a federation. We're not having cuts in this city to compensate for the poll tax. Now, they're not going to set the level of the poll tax today unless the right wing do a manoeuvre with the Liberals and decide to do it. So that's why we've called the lobby, to have a presence there to say, you know, you can't do this secretly. We will be there watching them and making sure. But as you can see, the national press are all here. They're waiting for us to riot. They're waiting for us to kick off. We're not going to give it to them. We are proud of the fight that we are conducting against the poll tax. And this is a fight that is going to be victorious, and we're not going to let them use little incidents to divert what the fight is all about, and that's against the poll tax and against the Tories and against the government. So when we go up there, we should go up there about 3 o'clock, I would say, because otherwise the police are going to be trying to force us to do all kinds of things. Go up there at 3 o'clock, have the noisiest demonstration we can have, try and go into the council chamber and make it absolutely clear we're not having the poll tax. So, you know, I want to thank everyone for coming. I think there's marvellous turnout, and we could really show it to them.
We're not paying our poll tax.
We're not paying our poll tax. We're not paying our poll tax. We're not paying our poll tax.
Right, before you all run off, so you've got your time for a couple of hours. It's a little thing you can do. Oh, sorry, I'm not looking at your watch. go around the city centre and see everyone and tell them what's happening, because you saw as we came down the town centre, everyone's going, what are these people doing? What are they doing? Why are they marching to the town hall? And go out there now and go and tell them what's going to be happening, what the council's trying to do, and why we're going to be lobbying them, and get those people down. We're going to go now, we'll go to Church Street now together, and we'll go and talk to the people, the buses.
Which do a meeting for?
All chief stewards. Now they will be myself, Jeff Goulden, who's in the back at the moment.
So it's around and all the funding to just people like renting out and all those sort of things. Is this organisation like that?
The Tories' tactic when they're faced with opposition at any time is to call the opposition militant, extremist, whatever. This campaign was made up of ordinary working class people who can't have one pay for poll tax. If we are going to be called militant, simply organising these people, and that's where we'll find the
What about your structure as an organisation? Is it legitimate?
Yes, we're made up of local groups, people organising themselves together for mass non-payment, organising to anti-poll tax unions, affiliated to national bodies against the poll tax. We're a bona fide organisation of ordinary working class people fighting poll tax.
There has been violence in other parts of the country. Do you condone that sort of action?
We don't condone violence whatsoever. But what about the violence in the poll tax itself? In Liverpool, 72% of the population are going to be worse off as a result of the poll tax. What about the violence in Scotland? Some local authorities attempted to send in bailiffs to people's houses who aren't able to pay the poll tax at all. In my view, that's violence, and we're going to campaign to use the poll tax.
Would you condone violence being used in demonstrations in town halls?
As I said, I don't condone violence at all. We're organising a mass campaign of non-payment linked to industrial action to stop the poll tax. It's the only way we're going to defeat this Tory poll tax.
How far are you prepared to push that?
We're prepared to push it as far as it goes. I'm prepared not to pay the poll tax. If necessary, I'll go to jail rather than pay the poll tax. But what I'm saying is it's an organised mass campaign, then there is safety in numbers. There are 10 million non-payers in England and Wales. It was simply impossible to defeat that amount of people.
Yeah, can I ask you, how do you... Okay, Mark Thatcher's stated that it's the Labour Council that are causing the problem. Again, can I ask you how you feel about that?
Well, try telling that to the 18 Tory councillors in West Oxfordshire who resigned as a result of the poll tax. It's quite clear that the poll tax itself is causing all the problems. It's nothing to do with Labour or Tory councils. Blame for this poll tax should be laid fairly and squarely in the lap of the Tory government.
Wandsworth set a poll tax £148. I understand that the subsidies for the residents in Wandsworth is different from the subsidies being available to those people in Liverpool. What comment would you have about that?
Well, we understand that subsidies have been made to Wandsworth in order to keep the poll tax down in that area. That's obviously a cynical ploy to try and ease the poll tax in Wandsworth, but also to use it to try and say to people in England and Wales that Tory councils will set low poll taxes and therefore people should vote Tory. We are campaigning against that kind of action. We are campaigning for mass non-payment of the poll tax.
You're campaigning for that. I understand in Scotland that nobody's actually been jailed for not paying it. Do you feel that will give you a leeway then in which to try and bring down the government through this reform?
Nobody at all in Scotland has been pursued or arrested or had bailiffs successfully carry out warrant sales in their homes because of non-payment of the poll tax. There are 1 million people in Scotland refusing to pay the poll tax, which is 1 in 4 of the population. If that is repeated in England and Wales next year, there will be 10 million non-payers. It will be simply impossible to collect poll tax from that amount of people.
What effect will that have, though, actually no poll tax being collected? I mean, what is that going to do for the council services?
What it will do is it will make an absolute mess of collection of the poll tax. But one of the red herrings of the campaign is to try and say that non-payment of the poll tax will wreck services. The truth of the matter is that it's the implementation of the poll tax itself which will wreck services in England and Wales. In Manchester, the introduction of the poll tax at £733 was reduced to £450 with a result of £28 million worth of cuts in Manchester, 3,500 job losses and a slashing of the education budget and a rise in charges for local services. That is the reality of the introduction of the poll tax.
Yeah, and do you see that happening in Liverpool though? Do you see services being cut?
The only way services will be cut in Liverpool is if the council attempts to cut services in order to reduce the poll tax. We are campaigning for the council not to make any cuts in services to compensate for the poll tax.
What value of poll tax do you think there will be to avoid cutting of services?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah. What value would the poll tax be in Liverpool to avoid those services being cut?
The City Treasurer has said the poll tax needs to be £521 in Liverpool just to keep services at a standstill. If that was capped to the government's level of £350, that would mean a 17% slashing of services and massive redundancies on the City Council.
Yeah, and what figure do you expect the poll tax should be set at in Liverpool?
We think from comments from the leader of the City Council that it's likely the poll tax will be around £450.
So services will be cut?
Well, the City Council leader, Keeva Coombs, has said that he can get it down to 450 without any cuts. That remains to be seen.
Thank you very much. What about the prospect of being capped by the government?
Well, a figure of £450 does still open up the prospect. When you consider the government's assumed level of poll tax is £303 for Liverpool, so it is a high.
Causing the problem by upping their amount of money for poll tax.
Margaret Thatcher's lying and she knows it. Most Conservative councils who set rates have set rates above the level that the government said that they should have done as well. No doubt Labour councils are doing it also, but one fact is most big cities have Labour councils, most big cities with very high spending figures in order to service the people who live in them, and therefore you're bound to have a high level of poll tax the way it is being organised.
Yeah, but there is some councils like Wandsworth that have set a poll tax of £148. How do you feel about that?
Wandsworth Council has got a subsidy through the safety net of £116 per person. They gain £116 per person from the safety net. Liverpool pays out £34 per person towards their safety net.
Do we have a safety net at all in Liverpool?
Well, we do, but we pay out instead of it being paid in, so therefore we are worse off by £34 per person.
So how do you feel about that situation?
I think it's a scandal, but what it really does show is the unfair nature of the poll tax. How can you have a big city like Liverpool with the poverty that people already know exists, the downtrodden conditions in some areas, and people paying into Tory shires to keep the poll tax levels down? What that is a cynical manoeuvre in order to try and save the Tory backbenchers.
And do you believe that will be successful, or do you think this will be very damaging for the government?
Well, it's proven not to be successful. 18 councillors resigned in one area, 3 cabinet ministers have gone over 5 months. That shows it's not being successful, and nothing is quelling the tide of revolt against the poll tax that is developing.
Okay, and finally, how do you feel the Labour leadership is handling the poll tax issue?
Unfortunately, very, very poorly. There's 74% of the population opposed to the poll tax. If the Labour leadership stood up, said they're opposed to the poll tax, they want a repeal of the poll tax immediately, that they would repeal it immediately, and that they support people who can't afford to pay, and they support the million non-payers in Scotland, that 74% against the poll tax would translate into 74% support for Labour, and that would mean a general election and the Tories out.
Right, and do you have a message for people about to pay the poll tax all over the country?
Don't pay it. You can't afford to pay it. We can't afford to pay it. Even if you have got the money to pay the bill, you can't afford the cuts in services that will come about because of the poll tax. Get organised, get off your feet, and stand up strong against the poll tax. Don't pay it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Just introduce myself. My name is John Jennings. I'm Secretary of the Merseyside Federation. Just for your information. Now, what we aim to do is have, a short march up to the council chamber, and we want to make as much noise as possible, let people know what's going on, show our opposition to the tax. But then we want people to assemble on the opposite side of the road, because we don't want at this stage any kind of confrontation with the police. This has been reported to us that there's quite a few police up there. They might actually want to try and provoke a confrontation. So would the national media. They would like to see some of the events which have developed in other parts of the country happening in Liverpool as well. It's not going to be, we don't believe that the level of the tax will be set at this meeting, and we will aim to organise a bigger lobby on the day at which the tax will be settled. And we'll have to discuss the tactics relating to that at that stage. But the main thing today is to make as much noise as possible, draw people's attention to what's actually taken place inside the council chamber, which is the budget being set. And then we want people to assemble on the opposite side of the road. Now there will be something like 30 or 40 people allowed into the council chamber. Many of them will be people who've been active in the poll tax campaign for the last 2 years, who've built campaigns on their own local estates. I think we should maybe try and have a couple of representatives from the student movements themselves in there. But the main thing at this stage is to have an organised, disciplined approach to it, and to really get the message across to the people of the city. Thanks.
Yeah, can I ask you, you're not advocating they all go into the town hall then?
No.
Why not?
Well,